what do you find that guys want? What do you find they mostly struggle with? What problems do they face? What problems do they think they have, but they actually don't? They have another problem maybe. So I just wondered, we could start there. So what's their goal? Like, what do they come to you for, generally speaking, initially?
Well, I think it speaks volumes that when I said at the start that guys say they want to be better with women, right? And I think that one of the problems that guys face, and actually tying in perfectly with what you're talking about, I really do think it's mostly down to social media, is that they get stuck in this frame of wanting to be better than they are, but not from the right place. It's coming from a sort of place of weakness, of constant comparison to other people, and sort of this like suffocated pride of like why don't I have what I want? I should be able to have what I want. And a lot of guys come from this perspective, and then they so when they say I want to be better with women, it's almost this kind of egoic drive, right? To feel like worthy of women, right? To feel worthy of beautiful women. And so I have this kind of battle with my clients at the start where they're saying, but why shouldn't I want to be better with women? I'm like, look, that isn't really the problem. The problem is that if you're so focused on like being better with girls, you're just always chasing your tail. You never get to that stage where you think you're better, and you're always pursuing it for the wrong reasons. And really, the women that matter, they don't feel like you're really invested in them. You're just invested in your own kind of vain pursuit of worthiness. And so I have this sort of battle with them where a lot of the guys that come to me are invested in personal development as well, right? It's very interlapping. And I say, look, you just got to drop the personal development side during this process. And we're going to focus on outcomes. We're going to focus on the manifestations of the process in your life. I know there's a lot of talk in self-help about process orientation versus results orientation. But in this case, I think that if guys are focused on like, getting better with girls, then they go out and they do an approach and the girl was friendly, right, and nice. And they're like, yes, I'm getting better. I'm good now. I'm getting better. And the next one, it goes badly. And they're like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I'm having a bad day. And they get exhausted by these stories that they're telling themselves about doing well or doing badly. Whereas the guys that come to me, the clients that come to me and say, Sam, I'm looking forward to get married. I want to get married to this type of woman. They know what they want directly. They get rejected by a girl and they're like, okay, she wasn't the one. What about this one? Okay, she wasn't the one. What about this one? And they get into it because they don't care. They're not getting wrapped up in the stories in the moment about why this girl didn't like them and what they did wrong, right? Now, there's some value to active learning, to saying, right, okay, this girl responded badly when I said that. Maybe I in this culture that there's something that I did to offend them, right? I mean, I was talking to a girl the other day and I was like, oh, cool. So where do you live? And she was like, I was like, sorry? She was like, you can't ask that. I was like, I didn't ask for your postcode.
I didn't ask for your address, but your apartment number.
Yeah, exactly. So when I come out of that interaction, I think, right, I'm fairly certain that's not an inappropriate thing to say. But if a pattern emerges, if I say that again and another girl responds like that, then I've learned something about Lisbon, right? I've learned something about at least the culture here. So there's some value to active learning. But for men to constantly be like looking back at the interaction and trying to find reason in why this didn't go well or this did is it's a complete dead end, because we can't control the mood she's in. And there's been research done on this, right? Where women were given in an experiment, 50% of the test subjects were given a task to do, right? They were told, you have to deliver this parcel to this house. And the other 50% weren't given a task, right? And as they left the building, a guy would come and approach them. I may be misquoting this a little bit, but this is the general gist. A guy would come and approach them, right? Now, the women that had the task to do were way less receptive to being approached than the women who had nothing to do. They were just told to go outside for 10 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So what that evidence showed is that if we've been given something that seems to us important to do, we are way less likely to respond to a cold approach, whether that's someone selling something or someone asking for our number or whatever in the street. So when we as men take the whole burden upon ourselves as like, I can control everything in my life, and if that interaction didn't go well, it's because I'm doing it wrong and I'm in the wrong place. It's like, no, there's a load of this stuff that you can't control, and it's impossible for you to untangle that which you can and that which you can't. It's a dance, right? She needs to be in the right headspace. You need to be in the right headspace. Like her dog might have died this morning, or she might have won the lottery, or she might have broken up with her boyfriend, or they might have just had a fight. And each one of these situations, which you have no control over, is going to entirely shape the way that she responds to you. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is to say, whether this goes seemingly really well or seemingly really badly, I am going to completely drop it after it happens, right? If I get a phone number or contact details, then I can come back to them later. But for now, during this process, I'm going to drop it all. I'm going to focus only on my lived experience right now, walking around, standing up straight, focusing on the faces of the individuals with whom you're coming into contact. And every time you have an interaction, whether it went well or bad, you drop it completely and come back to this moment. And what I learned for myself in following this process is that before, when I would get fatigued, I would find that if I had one good interaction, 10 minutes later, I wanted to go home, feeling exhausted. And I was exhausting myself, going over it in my head. When shall I message her? How was the interaction? What did she say her favorite thing to do was? You exhaust yourself with the emotional energy, feeling good and bad and annoyed and happy and getting wrapped up in these stories about nonsense. And really, you should just be focusing on right now, next, drop it, move on to the next one.
Yeah, I understand. So you say, so when guys say, I want to get better with women, that's generally, that's mostly what guys ask in a kind of a vague sort of way, you've noticed.
Yeah.
I want to get better with women. And you mentioned that obviously if someone comes to you and says they have like a concrete goal, such as I want to get married to this kind of woman, it tends to stand them in better stead than just saying a vague, I want to get better with women. Because you're saying that the guys that often say, I just want to get better with women, you're saying it's coming from a place of, coming from not quite the, not a good motivational foundation, right? They're coming from a place of maybe insecurity.
I think at least they're coming from a place of lack of clarity.
Right.
Because to be better with women, the only way that thought can exist in your mind is as a vague picture of a guy that is cooler than he is now in some way, right?
Yeah.
It's not concrete. It's not anything that you can actually work towards. It's just this vague image of the love child of you and Hugh Hefner, right? And these guys have this like, just to be better. And it's just this vague, scrappy image in their mind. And usually it comes when I've got slightly older clients, maybe like mid-late 30s, and they've sorted out their financial side and their health side, and, focusing on those two things has taken them out of the dating market to some extent, and they've sort of neglected that area a bit, but they're clear about what they want. And I find myself doing a very different job when I'm with them. I'm basically everything is so simple. So we just go out and they approach, and I watch and give them feedback if they need it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And we just continue like this until it works. And it does work. And on the other hand, when I'm working with someone who was like I was when I first got into this, a bit emotionally broken and confused and, not quite understanding what I want, or just knowing that I'm not where I want to be at all. When I have someone like that, I'm doing a very different job. I'm more of a psychologist. I'm trying to bring clarity to their mind about what they actually want and get them to drop any sense of, trying to help them to drop the ego by focusing on the manifestations, right? And maybe even focusing on the other areas of their life, right? On their health and their ability at least to have a manageable financial situation. Yeah. And so it's kind of, it's a spectrum of the work that I actually do, depending on where the client's at.
Yeah.